Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the August 27th, 2020 meeting of the Royal Downtown Park Task Force. Our first item of business tonight is a roll call because that just is proper procedure with the Zoom meeting format. So I'm going to go around the group as I see them. Tim Sikorsky.
Present.
Sarah Kindiger.
Present.
Kyle DeBuck, Commissioner DeBuck.
Here.
Jason Krieger.
Here.
Commissioner Douglas has indicated that she will not be able to participate tonight, and Frank Arvon we haven't heard from yet, so we'll admit him if he signs on as the meeting is underway. The third item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 15th, 2020 meeting. It's been some time since we had that meeting currently, but we do have to approve those minutes tonight. If there's any corrections, this would be the appropriate time to indicate how that should be corrected. We didn't have a whole lot of business that meeting. There were two items. We had to pick a design A and a design B. We also had to make a decision about the location of the Veterans Memorial. But other than that, it was just a review of the current status of the design. So are there any corrections to the January 15th, 2020 minutes? If not, I'll accept a motion for their approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is that Mr. Krieger?
It is.
It is.
I'll second.
Seconded by Sarah. Again, we have to do roll call votes for motions, for votes. So again, I'm going to go around as I see you on the screen. Tim Sikorsky?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBuck?
Yes.
And Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Okay, those minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda are City Commission comments. Commissioner DeBuck, you're here this evening. Do you have any comments at this time?
I guess I would just say it's great to see all your faces. I think this is our first virtual meeting, unless I've missed one, right? But of this task force. We've been dealing with this as a city for a while now. But I'm feeling really optimistic. This morning we did a visit actually over to Normandy Oaks, which is starting to come together, and seeing it start to take shape, has kind of energized me to think about what this is going to look like when these buildings come down and we start actually seeing some action on this property. And having been through the whole Normandy Oaks thing from beginning to now seeing it come to fruition, I'm really excited for you all to share in the feeling of having been a part of this from beginning until it's actually built. And so I hope everyone's feeling good about the work that we've done and optimistic about moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner DeBuck. I would just add that I was also very, very enthusiastic to see how the Normandy Oaks project was going this morning. And I'm equally excited about the development of this particular park. Another person who has joined our meeting, who many of you have not had an opportunity to meet, is our new City Commissioner, Paul Brake. Mr. Brake, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have any comment? I hate to put you on the spot, but do you have any comments at this time about this? Otherwise, we'll just let you be an important listener to this process.
I would just echo the same comments that Commissioner DeBuck mentioned, that it's exciting to see all this coming together. I'm coming into this process very late, but I'm very honored to take part of this. The previous community where I served, I'm originally from Michigan, but I came from Morgantown, West Virginia. And the last project that I worked on was a major park renovation project. Has some similarities to this project. So I look forward to working with the design team and the construction team and move this forward into reality.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda are public comments. Let me just indicate one order of business before we go to public comments. The City Commission has been doing meetings with Zoom for quite a while now, and we have all found that the technique that is available for Zoom is raising hands. You have a little icon on the bottom of your screen where if you want to say something, you click that and raise your hand. Some of us on our screens, including me, have difficulty seeing that you have raised your hand with that icon. I have a relatively small screen that I'm using. And so what has been effective for us is just for us to wave our hands when we want to say something. And the chair immediately recognizes that there's people who would like to say something. So we're going to use that same technique. This evening, it's a little primitive. It's not technology based, but it works. So whenever we get into the discussion portion of the meeting and you want to say something, please raise your hand so that I can see it in the screen. And I will call on you in order that I see you. And that's what we'll use. So with that, I think the next item on our agenda are public comments. Ms. Schwanger has been collecting those if there are any. The public comment period was open later this afternoon for this meeting. And so Ms. Schwanger, if you are ready, this is the appropriate time to let us hear any public comments that might have come in.
Mayor Pro Tem, we have 2 public comments that were phoned in this evening, and I will play those for you.
Yeah, hello. My name's Charles Semchina. I believe you may have received an editorial that I wrote, was published in the Daily Tribune over Memorial Weekend. I got a call from the city manager today who confirmed that he sent that out to the committee members so you could review that ahead of time. I'm glad I hope you have it, because 3 minutes isn't enough time to do justice to this issue. Some of us have been tracking the Veterans Memorial being moved as part of the park project for some time. Several of us went to the last Veterans Affairs Committee meeting. That was about 6 months ago. They gave us about an hour to talk, went through the information in that editorial, which actually I would have written something different for you, but there was no time. We just got a notice of this meeting Tuesday afternoon, an email from the downtown manager. One of the veterans forwarded it to me. But it does outline the information, the substantive issues that you should be discussing. Our request is to fill a gap here in transparency and providing knowledge to people. There should be some form of a different meeting format, a town hall style meeting, where there's an intentional outreach to bring people in who donated money to move the Veterans Memorial to its current location, and to have veterans who participated in the past have noticed through their organizations and individually. I don't believe that's ever been done by the City Commission, the Veterans Committee, or this Parks Committee. The Veterans Committee listened to our information 6 months ago and had said they would schedule us for the next month. Some of the members wanted to make a motion recommending that the City Commission instruct the architects and planners to design an option that would leave the memorial in its current location. A lot of us believe that with skilled architects and designers, that all the objectives of the Parks Committee and the City Commission can be met without minimizing the solemn nature of the memorial and moving it to the side. Looking at your plans right now online, we will never be able to have the types of events that we used to have, where there were thousands and thousands of people who would gather on Memorial Day after a parade. The pancake breakfast at Farmers Market would empty out. There's just not enough room the way you've done it. And the current site was selected because it does provide enough room. The steps of the library give elevation. The porch provides more space for people to stand. There's a lot of room on each side on the grass for people to assemble. You basically, if you go forward with the plan you have now, we'll never be able to have the events like we've had in the past. And when I look at it, I thought it was a joke at first when someone told me that you're trying to design like a food court, like in a mall, to put food trucks.
This is Bill Harrison. It appears that the Veterans Memorial is being moved to provide a clear space for food trucks and an outdoor cafe area in front of the library. The memorial will no longer be in a prominent location opposite the library steps. Trees in front of the memorial will interfere with a place for assembly in front of the memorial. How will the installation provide a skateboard deterrent? We need to see an elevation drawing of a memorial, like slide 33, that shows an elevation of the front of the library. The memorial relocation should be a question on the ballot, since the memorial location is implied by the land dedication. Thank you. This is Bill Harrison. It appears that the Veterans Memorial is being moved to provide a clear space for food trucks and an outdoor cafe area in front of the library. The memorial will no longer be in a prominent location opposite the library steps. Trees in front of it. This is Bill Harrison.
Mayor Pro Tem and members of the task force, that concludes the public comment. I'm sorry about that. I was trying to multitask and missed the end on that last one. My apologies.
Thank you, Ms. Schwanger. You do multitasking so well. We're so glad you do what you do. So no apologies necessary. That moves us on to the next item on our agenda, which is our business meeting, which is the primary purpose is to review the design status at its 90% completion phase. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn this over to whoever is going to be in charge of this presentation. Mr. Kalipski, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, well, ultimately, I'll let Andy Knight from MKSK kind of lead the presentation. I'll just preface it by saying, you know, we, at the last Downtown Park Task Force, they did get quite a bit of feedback from the task force members and a little bit from the public. And I think you'll see that reflected tonight in what MKSK has to present, particularly with some of the concerns related to damaging of the memorial. So I'll let them take it.
Well, hello, group. It's good to see everybody again. It has been a while. When you guys were reading the minutes, and the last time we met was in January, there's been a lot that's occurred since then, obviously, beyond this project. So we will get to meet again in face. Hopefully it's with an open park, ribbon cutting day, and we can, you know, celebrate. So this is an exciting time in the project because all the exciting ideas that we've been working on to this point, they're all coming together. Kristen, if you want to pull up that presentation, we can get started on that and I can continue to talk. So we've got a lot of representation from our team on this Zoom call today. So if there are any questions about particular items, we can cover those. But essentially what we've done is taken that concept design that we shared back in January. I think it was schematic at that level, and have fine-tuned that and made it even better. All the elements that you'll see in this, and this is just kind of an outline plan of the CAD drawing. A lot of line work with score joints and things there. But let's go to the rendering that we had these done a couple of weeks ago. Just kind of serendipitously happened with this meeting as well. We wanted some really good renderings to kind of share the buzz of the project, and this meeting came up on the calendar, so it was a great opportunity to share these with you all. But all the programmatic elements that we had discussed all through the project, you know, starting from community engagement, the charrettes that we had, what we'd heard at the food truck rally, and even working with the memorial groups. It's all still here. Nothing has changed. We've only begun working on details, determining materials, and which we'll go through later on this in the presentation. But really excited to share where we currently are right now. We've got a couple of updates on some of the elements. Library Terrace, for example, that phase was formally added since we last met, so we were able to advance that it's up to the same level of design as the phase one, which is the overall park. So we're looking at this all together now at this point. So we've got De Leon and Primer. Roberto De Leon will talk a little bit later about the architecture inspiration for the shade canopy there on the library terrace, and we'll also take a look at the restroom as well. That's adjacent to the pop jet fountain there for that convenience for families. So Kristen, let's go through a couple of other of these photos. You can see the stage here looking out over the lawn area. We've still got the hill within the plan, so that we've got the topography changes. Lots of vegetation. We've done everything we can to keep as much vegetation as possible in this, so we get a lot of seasonal color, shade, and I know now in this hot summer right now, we've been kind of running from shade to shade, so making sure we keep that within the plan, and then lots of activity kind of surrounding this sort of open glade that's in the middle of the park. Let's take a look at the next slide. This is a view from the library terrace, looking down onto the promenade there with the shade canopy there in the foreground. So again, we're really excited. We've got a lot of great details to share with you. Kristen and Haley are going to kind of co-present some of that. They've been really leading since that 30% design. They've really taken hold of this and have started advancing a lot of these details, working with, Justin and Jen from F&V with De Leon and Primer. It's been a really collaborative effort. We've also been in close contact with Aaron and John from the city, regular meetings with them. So excited to share some of the updates with you here. Kristen, do you want to take it over and go over some of the details?
Yes, so as Andy mentioned, Haley and I will talk through some details such as the hardscape. This is just an overview plan. We have unit pavers, several different finishes of concrete, as well as a mulch surface for the nature play area. So this slide represents what we're calling the perimeter path. So this is a exposed aggregate and integral colored concrete. We wanted to have some contrast for this path from the rest of the more standard colored concrete for the remainder of the site. So it really pops out and has a different color to it.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Kristen, that perimeter path, that came from an idea from Emily at the library. Was really interested in having some sort of little path that she could take her kids along to kind of go through these different landscapes, possibly add some signage within this as well for educational purposes. And also the ring kind of derived from the outer ring circle of an oak tree.
Next, we have our unit pavers. These are concrete unit pavers located in seating areas. We have 3 primary areas where the pavers are. There will be movable tables and chairs and trees as well. So there'll be really an interactive space where people can come and spend time and sit. They are also representative. There is a theme from the perimeter path to now. This pattern is a DNA pattern. So we've used inspiration of an oak tree's DNA to create the pattern in the pavers. Next, we have the bulk of the site is concrete pavement, and I mentioned the different finishes where we have this banding or striped pavements. It is standard concrete with a buff wash or architectural finish to give it just a crisp, nice finish to it with seeded aggregate, so black basalt seeded aggregate that will give the banding the contrast that you see here in the plan. The rest of the pavement is just a buff wash finish, standard concrete for the remainder of the park. Here we have, for the fountain, we have granite pavers. The granite pavers really hold up well to constant foot traffic, but also any chemicals or chlorine that may be in the water. So they are the most durable paving material out there, and they're also very aesthetically pleasing. And we picked a color palette that matches or tries to match as closely as possible to the concrete pavers. So the pattern, the sizing is just a little different, but we use the same pattern here for the DNA pavers to try to keep this consistent throughout. So at the memorial, we have a second type, a very small amount of square footage. It's just over 200 square feet of cobble pavers. They are ADA accessible, but they are also have a texture to them for skate deterrent. So rather than raise the memorial, we've got about 8 to 10 feet, which is a pretty good stretch here of the cobble pavers to deter skateboarders. And I am going to turn it over to Haley to talk about lighting.
Thanks, Kristen. So across the site, we try to address, the different needs of each of the areas. Since this is a pedestrian scaled area, we wanted to have pedestrian lights throughout. And you can see on there, those are in the yellow. We also have taller area lights for more of the event spaces, which is in the blue, and those will be 25-foot poles with movable heads in several directions. If you go to the next slide, we can get into more detail. So here you can see those two that I mentioned. I think with the pedestrian lights too, we wanted something that wasn't a globe fixture, which you see throughout the city, but we wanted something that would complement it. So this fixture really reduces the glare when you're walking around the space. And the next one. So a couple other lights that we use around the Veterans Memorial area, we use a bollard light, which is more of a low path light. And we think this will help to uplight and just have a nice ambiance to that memorial area. And then for those plaza spaces that Kristen mentioned earlier, we are suggesting overhead string lights, so the almost like a festoon light that would create those kind of cafe spaces and just add a little bit of whimsy to the area. The next one. Site furnishings. As you can see, a lot of furnishings are used across the site. This was an opportunity for us to, again, program those spaces into what we assume them to be used for, but also adding a lot of punches of color that would complement the Royal Oak branding and also just provide, again, that whimsy that we'd like to see. Some of our bigger furnishings. So this is a built-in stage. You can see here it's about 1 to 2 feet, 2 steps up. But we wanted to ensure that at least one side of it could be ADA accessible. So if you go over to the right there, we kind of blended it in with the surrounding concrete. Next slide. A couple of other custom items that we have designed. You can see to the left here, it's a curvilinear bench with a cast and plate concrete base with an Ipe wood finish up top. This is extremely durable wood. You need special drills to drill into it. And then the feature bench, as you can see there, is it's like a lounge type shape. It would really be a signature piece to this area of the park. And that is also covered in that Ipe wood slat. So you can see here kind of our palette of the different furnishings used across the site. Orange and navy blue were the color palette that we suggested. Lots of movable furniture, but then also built-in place pieces such as the table tennis, the concrete community table, which is, I think we have it 10 to 12 feet long. And then you can see other pieces there, such as the lounge chairs that would also add the color. I actually saw some of these in person the other day near my house, and they were really, really comfortable. I think with this, the playscape, very important. You can see an overhead view there of the natural play space. These are some inspiration images of what this will turn out to be, such as those balance beams and the plank walk with a boulder ring. We wanted something that would complement the butterfly garden already that exists there that we're anticipating to protect, but then also something that wasn't as manufactured maybe as other parks in Royal Oak. I know there's a lot of other different catalog features that are seen throughout the different parks in Royal Oak, so this would be something a little bit different.
And Haley, if I could just add in,
Yeah.
we know these photos are pretty large scale areas, especially this one up here, and this is a much smaller, more intimate space, and we really are confident that we can preserve it as much of the pollinator garden as possible. There may be a slight disturbance when we rebuild this wall, but a lot of these features are very small scale, and we think that they'll fit really nicely into the space along with the native plants.
And I think with that, we are moving on to architecture. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess I'll just say next on the slide, whoever's.
Okay, if that's what, yeah, I'm not sure if we can share.
That's totally fine.
Okay.
Okay, so for the architectural components, we're going to talk about the canopy first, because that is probably the sort of the latest in the sort of elements as far as the latest developed. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just really how the design came to be and the precedents for that. So let's go to the next slide. So much like really thematically the rest of the park, the architectural components also draw on the precedent, or largely inspired by the oak and the oak leaf in the case of the canopy. So that's really where we started with the canopy, looking at the kind of defining characteristics of the oak leaf, and then starting with something familiar, and then transforming that into something more whimsical and abstract, but still keeping sort of these defining characteristics of the oak leaf. So the next slide. And so a key part of the oak leaf, these characteristics are these deeply lobed sort of curvilinear elements. And then also the fact that the leaf itself is actually quite sculptural and three-dimensional. So this kind of undulating surface of the oak leaf. And so again, these deep lobes and then this undulating surface is where the canopy design is drawn from. Okay, next. We also began to look at things like wood shavings and how the canopy elements might allude to these kinds of shapes as well. And how can we make something that feels organic like the oak leaf, but easy to construct and has a modular quality to it. So next. And so these are very early concept models that literally out of paper, again, trying to think, how can we build this in the simplest way possible, even though it's something that may look complex, but how do we do that simply? And so we began to look at ribbons, in this case, imagining them as colorful sort of steel ribbons. In this case, we then developed this, I think in the next slide, into a further iteration into these sort of curlicue shapes. And again, thinking back about the deeply lobed leaves of the oak leaf, and then again the three-dimensional quality to them. In this next iteration, what we were after were creating larger areas of shade, and so when we aggregate them, this is what this tends to look like. So what we're going after here is a kind of dappled shade underneath the canopy. So again, evoking that quality, or sort of the characteristics of being underneath the shade of a tree, essentially. Okay, next. And these ribbons are then suspended from a series of bent steel beams. And so the key component here is that even though this looks complex, it's actually an aggregate of three sizes of modules of steel ribbons and beams and columns. And so it looks complex, but there's actually, again, it's a repeated series of modular elements. Okay, next. And so this then, from the pedestrian point of view, is what this looks like. So it's a very sort of organic shape. Again, it's evocative or evokes the qualities of the oak leaf, but it is interpreted as something that, again, we started with something familiar, but is now something new, but also very specific, again, to this park. This is unique, uniquely designed for this park. And so what we're after here then is this kind of dappled quality of shaded light underneath the canopy, but also we're trying to minimize the amount of columns that this is actually supported by. So again, we're trying to maximize the flexibility of how the space underneath this canopy can be used. And we'll take a look at in another view of this. So this is the what it looks like underneath the canopy from the level of the raised terrace of the library. The bottom of these ribbons are about 13 feet to the lowest part. They actually are fairly consistent in terms of the depth. They're all 2 feet deep. Okay, next. And then this is the view from the kind of main thoroughfare looking towards the library in the background, and then with this canopy element, this leaf-like element in the foreground. And again, this kind of quality of dappled light underneath. Okay, next slide. And so this is basically a roof plan of the canopy. And so you can see here then that there's basically 3 different sized modules. The largest one is approximately 16 feet by 16 feet. The next size is 12 feet by 12 feet. And then the smallest of these is 8 feet by 8 feet. So this may look, it may be hard to get a sense of the scale of this, but when you think about 8 feet by 8 feet, that's almost the size of a small room. So again, we were trying to look at not just providing shade, but also a certain amount of square footage for actual rain cover. So within this total square footage of rain cover, let's see, we have about a little over 1,400 square feet of actual covered canopy space. So what that translates into is it basically provides rain cover for about plus or minus 97 people if we think about allocating about 15 square feet per person. So there's a generous amount of rain cover here that's actually underneath this canopy. Okay, next slide. And so this is a floor plan of the terrace, library terrace floor. So what you can see here is that the darker sort of dots that you can see here is actually where these columns land down onto that terrace surface. So again, we're trying to minimally touch the terrace floor itself. And again, we're trying to maximize the flexible use aspect of the terrace area. And the kind of squiggly lines that you see in lighter are actually the beams that are above this. So they're not actually on the terrace, on the ground surface. They're actually just a frame of reference. So you can see where these canopy or ribbon elements are, where they're supported above. Okay, next. And so we can go through these very quickly, but these are more sort of dry drawings. But we just wanted to show you, again, the thinking through here in terms of the development of this canopy element. Again, looking at an abstract or organic shape that looks complex, but in reality, it's a series of aggregated modules. So this is just a series of floor plans, roof plans, and a reflected ceiling plan. Okay, next. And these are elevations, which I think the renderings are more descriptive. Let's just go to the next image. And these are sections. Again, these are, again, more technical drawings, but let's go to the next image. And so what this just shows is we basically have the columns are comprised of sort of basically 2 types. It's a column cluster. These are then connected to footings, concrete footings, which are then below the library terrace surface. At the where these columns sort of branch off, approximately the 10-foot level, are a series of flexible or adjustable lights that light the under canopy of these ribbons. And so we're not trying to go for bright, even lighting. This is really more about ambient lighting. And again, sort of the reverse of this at night is that this becomes a kind of a sort of a lantern essentially in this landscape that has a kind of a dappled light effect. But in the evening, it sort of reverses. Okay, next. And this sheet shows the essentially the four basic modules for the ribbons, and showing how they are essentially formed from a laser cut template and then assembled and repeated. And so these are what those colorful again ribbons are comprised of. They also so there's a series of variations within these. So there's an open version and then a closed version. And the closed version is, again, trying to increase the amount of actual rain-covered area underneath this canopy. The intent of this also, in terms of the repeatability and the modularity of this, is that, again, this canopy structure is essentially minimal or zero maintenance. There is really no maintenance required for this. The color would then be a baked-on finish, and again, this is a very, very durable finish, and essentially the intent would be that this rain just washes off of this. Again, there's minimal to no maintenance for the canopy.
Yeah, Roberto, I'm sorry to interrupt. You designed these two, the ones that were closed, that they have a slight slope to it, so water's not going to pond.
Right, there is no
off of it.
Absolutely. So this is actually sloped or sloped drain. So again, this is not holding water. This is actually allowing water to drain off to the sides of each of these modules. Thank you, Annie, for reminding me. Okay, I think next. So the restroom design, and maybe perhaps Caroline can talk about this, but I'll just kind of, again, the restroom design is, I think that you may have seen this in a previous version where we were looking at glazed brick, but the surface of this is basically sort of draws on the kind of irregularity of oak tree bark, and so there's the intent of this is that the actual brick walls of this will transform from day to night, from natural light, the way that shadows form on it. And so again, it's actually a fairly straightforward brick wall, but the way that they are rotated forms this intricate sort of complex patterning of shadows that again transforms throughout the day because of how light falls on natural light falls on it. Caroline, did you want to talk a bit about this or add to this?
Yeah, I guess if you want to go to the next slide, you can see kind of a close-up of that detail. And the bathroom has been designed so that no matter how you approach it, whether you're coming from the north or the south, you're going to get that effect regardless, kind of seeing the shadows and the serrated edge and how it changes throughout the day. And that was definitely an important feature when we were designing this.
Yeah, so again, we just like with the canopy, we started with something familiar and abstracted this. So again, this is drawing on having a sense of whimsy and wit to it. The other, I think, challenging aspect of the restroom building is that there is no backside to it. Every side is essentially a front side. And so we really had to think of this as a kind of a building in the round, where there is no bad side to it, essentially. And that's the design intent of this, this sort of custom brick patterning. I think that's actually the last image for the architectural components.
Okay, thank you, Roberto, and the rest of the team. So that's a summary of there's a whole bunch of information that we sort of glossed over, but a lot of that's kind of details similar to what some of the images that Roberto was sharing with construction sheets. We've got a lot of those. We are very close to having our set ready to for completion to go out to bid at some point in time. So everything's on schedule. We've been checking all along with our budget. We feel comfortable with that. So I guess at this point, if there's any specific questions about anything, we've got our team on here, happy to address any of that or talk about next steps.
Okay, thank you very much. I should point out to everybody that is in this meeting, but as well as people who are watching because this is a public meeting, that this presentation that you've just seen is available online attached to the agenda for this meeting. If you go to the city agenda and minutes section of the website and you scroll down to the Downtown Park Task Force, you'll get the agenda for this meeting, and attached to that agenda is this presentation, which you can either watch online or you can, I'm assuming, download and print out and have a printed copy. So this is available for the public as of right now, and further details, I'm sure, will be presented in much the same way. So at this point in time, do we have any questions from members of the task force? Because of my small screen, I can see Tim and Sarah and Jason on my screen. Jason, I see your hand first. Go right ahead.
First of all, I'd like to commend you guys on a great job. I think it's beautiful. I really do. I've got a question about the memorial, and this came up, and I was actually going to ask this before some of the public comment. There are a couple trees there in front of the memorial, and I think aesthetically it's really nice, right? It kind of helps to create an intimate vibe there, and I think it's quite nice to add that. However, I have seen large gatherings, and that may impede views when there are. So I guess I'm not directing, I'm asking. Have you guys thought about that? Was there a reason? Did you consider that? So that was a question I have for the design team.
Sure. Yeah, we, trees, there's the heat at times, sometimes, creates an uncomfortable environment. And so I think we were thinking that the columns of the trees themselves are probably only going to be, 6 inches, maybe 8 inches wide, probably for the first decade. And so that narrow view shed that it might be blocking is, in our opinion, worth the added shade to that space. If you're out there watching a ceremony or participating in honoring people, then I think having that element of shade is going to be a benefit to the space. Now, having said that, if it's the will of this committee or the feedback from others, those trees can easily be removed from that spot. Like anything, trees can be added later on. You can see how it operates, and if it is hot, then maybe the addition of trees or some other structure could happen at a later date. So
you bring something up. Don't give up so easy, Andy. I'm kidding. No, so you bring some up though, really. So these are shade trees, right? And the foliage itself will not be in the line of sight, correct?
No, the foliage, the canopy. We're proposing canopies be trimmed to a minimum of, I believe, 8 feet or so. We'd like for them to be even higher than that. So you're just going to be seeing the tree trunk in your view,
right? And so right now, the trees that are out around the memorial, there are a lot of trees, and they're shade trees, and I think it does create a good environment. So you saying that makes me realize that I think that could work, because it will not be impeding line of sight per se, but for a small trunk, and it will give shade, which I think would be very important. If there were zero trees, that would probably not be comfortable in certain times of the year. So thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
And I just wanted to add, this is Kristen, we'll make note to make sure that we provide the right species to get that limbed up canopy as soon as they go in. So we'll have them a larger size with the limbs up form.
Well, when they first go in, Kristen, they're going to be so small, you're going to be able to see through them anyway. I think it's a little bit older as it continues to mature, that we have a pruning program. And that's one of the things that we'll want to work with the city on, is developing a maintenance. This will be a park that's different than some of the other parks that you have. So there may be a little bit of a difference in terms of maintaining. And we want to make sure that you all aren't just off running on your own, that we consult with you all and make sure that, we've helped you along the way. Because the maintenance of this is just as important as day one opening. the maturity of it is only going to make this park continue to get better every single year.
Okay, first I've seen Tim's hand and then Sarah's. So let me go first with Tim and then Sarah.
First of all, I want everyone to know that you've done a really great job. This is super exciting to see the completion that you've come to so far. What I'm looking at is the density of the trees at that nature playscape and the trees directly across at the memorial. I think those are important trees to leave there. That's going to offer that buffer between that butterfly garden, the walkway, and then the memorial itself. So I am very much in favor of leaving those trees there, and I think it's a great plan. It's going to offer the solitude that that memorial does deserve.
Sarah.
I just want to echo the comments. I think this is absolutely stunning, and I can't wait to actually go visit it. So I'm looking forward to making the progress of and being at that ribbon cutting and celebrating all the hard work that's gone into this. I just wanted to clarify, make sure I understood. It sounds like the terrace and the restroom now are in the budget. I don't know if I missed a memo. That's easy to say that I could have.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Love all of that. I also agree with Tim about having some separation between the children and the memorial. So I think that we should really consider how we plant those trees and what we're doing with those. So other than that, I think it looks absolutely stunning and can't wait to actually start going there. So congratulations.
And we just want to clarify for those that may be concerned, the nature play area is not a schoolyard playground.
Right.
It's a passive, low intensity play. And I believe there's play that's there now with the bee, and we're keeping the butterfly garden there as well. So it won't be a hustling, bustling, theme park type of experience. It's going to be mild and low key, and just an opportunity for kids to come out and just burn off a little bit of steam while they're in the library.
The bathroom won't be like climbable. Didn't we see a design where the bathroom walls were climbable or something? We skipped that, right? Like we're past that.
The bathroom walls, no, they're not climbable, and the extrusions, and correct me if I'm wrong, Roberto, the extrusions are just enough to give it that texture.
Okay.
Yeah, not enough that you're going to climb it like a climbing wall.
Did we had a design where they were like a climbing piece, like it was a part of the design, wasn't it?
They only protrude half an inch outwards.
Okay. I just think I'm remembering something else. I think the one that had the much higher elevation, we had climbing on it or something a long time ago. Love it. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate all your help and answers.
Commissioner DeBuck, did you have questions? I just saw you're up on my screen. Yes. You need to unmute, Commissioner DeBuck. There you go.
All right. Thank you. So like everyone else said, I think this looks amazing. I mean, if the park in reality is half as beautiful as renderings, I think it's going to be a slam dunk for the city, and for all who visit. I just want to say your instincts on the tree shade and for the memorial are spot on, because our experience right now, having gone to every event that happens there, when we have generally our Memorial Day event, the sun is shining, and you'll see the entire crowd migrates away from the chairs that are set up, and the density of the crowd, they all kind of congregate in the tree shade, and so there would be rows of empty chairs in the direct sunlight, and people want to be out of that sun. So I think that would be a very nice feature and a nice addition to have for our events there, so long as there's line of sight beyond the trees.
Okay, do I see any other hands, any other comments at this point? I will just add that I think this design is just remarkable. I really, really think that you listened not only to the public comments, and there were thousands of those as you were gathering your information before we even got to this point, very, very well, and have integrated all the elements that we consider to be very important into this park. I think it's going to be gorgeous when it's done, and I look forward to this whole design process. finishing up so that you can go up, so that we can go out to bid. One of the things that we have heard about in terms of the memorial is making sure that there's adequate space for people to sit, adequate space for people who have walkers and wheelchairs and so on to be able to get up close to it, not only during the Memorial Day fairs themselves, but also on other random days or evenings when people just happen to be in the park. And I think that you've taken that into consideration very seriously, and I think that you're to be commended for that. A number of us have in our minds, unfortunately, a picture of the Memorial Day facilities and festivities as they have been in the past, and we're trying to wedge them into this particular design, and that's not going to work. We certainly will have Memorial Day festivals and activities and so on in this space, but they will be probably slightly moved around a little bit, and that's just the way that the design is going to change over time. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be any less respectful, or that people are going to have a diminished capacity to participate or a diminished ability to see. We're going to be able to accommodate a great number of people around the entire perimeter of the Veterans Memorial Plaza area, as well as the new Library Terrace. So in a lot of ways, it's going to provide more opportunities for more people to congregate than we're able to be there currently. So I think that that's an advantage as well to this design. It's going to give a lot more people an opportunity to participate and just visually participate in that celebration. So with that, Mr. Filipski, do you need any formal motion or action by us this evening to say, yes, this is fine, proceed to the next phase? Or is our lack of a negative, no, stop, you've got to change, all you need tonight?
Yeah, I guess it was short of anything. You don't have to do a resolution, although if you want to transmit that sort of will to the commission, it wouldn't hurt. So I guess that's up to you. But
okay.
yeah, I'm not seeking anything particularly. I don't need action should you choose not to make a motion.
Okay, let me see if I can see any other hands down here. I think just as a matter of record, just that it's in the public record. Perhaps there is a kind of a soft motion that we have reviewed the design and have viewed it favorably and encouraged the designers and the city to move forward based upon this design tonight. Maybe something like that would be appropriate, so that there is at least a public record that we did take a look at this and we did approve of it and didn't make any modifications.
I can make that motion. I motion to move forward with the design as it was presented.
I'll second.
Support.
Okay, there was a motion by Sarah. Who was the seconder? Who was the person who made the second? Was that Tim?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. There's a motion.
And Jason together.
I think Kyle too. So I think we all second.
Okay. All right. We'll put you all on the record. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all is in favor. We're going to have to do a roll call again. And I'm going to go around based upon how I see these listed. On my screen, you're all so small. Mr. Sikorsky, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBuck?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Filipski, is there anything else related to this presentation that you need from us this evening?
No, just anything else. I think you guys have provided kind of the input that we were seeking, and nope, I have nothing else.
Okay. When we were doing the Normandy Oaks Park tour this morning, there was a question about when the City Hall and police station might be demolished so that we can get a better view of what the space looks like for this particular park. I don't know if Mr. Brake or Mr. Filipski wants to comment on that. I just want to be sure that I'm saying it accurately, so I'm not going to say anything.
Sure, I can speak to that. It's the preliminary schedule is towards the end of the calendar year of this year to have the buildings demolished. But once we get closer and confirm that, I can share that with the commission, and we'll make that known through our webpage. But the preliminary schedule has that time frame.
And it's my understanding the police station, the police personnel are scheduled to move into the new police station mid-October. Is that correct?
That is correct, right. Without any delays that could occur, they're scheduled, it's the third week of October to move into the new station.
Commissioner DeBuck, you have a question?
Actually, Commissioner Perush, we missed Ms. Streamer in that roll call, and I just want to know if you want to get her vote on the record.
I'm sorry.
And I vote yes.
Yeah.
And I vote yes. You just missed me on the roll call. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, I apologize. I didn't notice that you had joined the meeting. I apologize for not recognizing you. Did you have any, as long as the staff and the designers are still on board here, do you have any questions for us in terms of your reaction to the design?
No, I think it looks great. My main questions were just about the memorial, and those were all answered.
Okay. Well, it's nice to see you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks.
Another thing that that Mr. Brake and Mr. Filipski mentioned this morning when they were talking about the demolition of the buildings, we probably understand this. We probably kind of know this, but there's not going to be any big, you blow up the buildings like the Palace of Auburn Hills. It's going to be, taken down brick by brick, beam by beam. It's going to be a slow process with a lot of heavy machinery. So don't start selling tickets to the big demolition party, because that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be really exciting for those of us with little grandchildren and little children to come and watch, because there's going to be a lot of big machinery. It'll be so exciting to see the open space when it's all down. But it's not going to be like the Palace of Auburn Hills, because it would probably blow out every window in the Henry Ford building. So that's how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen soon. So that's exciting.
Sure, we can't change your mind, Paul, that we can't get some kind of big explosion.
They probably wouldn't like it at the Ford building next door. So
I understand. Sounds more fun to have an explosion, though.
Oh yeah, that's true. I don't think the DDA would like that at all. The next item on our agenda are items that are not on our agenda. Mr. Filipski or John, do you have anything that's not on the agenda?
No, and so I except for that, to mention that the one comment that I had looking back at the last task force meeting, the one item that wasn't on the agenda was the restroom discussion, because as you know, we found money for that. But looking back at the comments, overall, it seemed like everybody was supportive of that, but there was a couple issues to pause for. And so I guess I just wanted to put out there that if there's anything, still any lingering comments or concerns about the restrooms, that sort of now would be the time to bring that up and share that with the city commission. I'm not saying there are, but I just, from my my viewing of the last meeting, that sort of stood out a little bit. So
were the comments that we weren't going to have, I thought the comments were around we weren't going to have them, and now it looks like we are.
No,
was there something else?
At that time, we were still, we hadn't been pledged the money from the DDA at that point, so it was still
right.
Conceptual, but they had been discussed, and there wasn't any direction to say, no, we don't want them. It was sort of if budget allowed. But there were a couple of comments that questioned the utility of a one stall.
Okay, got it.
So if there's anything lingering on that, I would just like to know, because as I said, now would be the time. But other than that, I have nothing.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the clarification.
I'm seeing a note in the chat that John McIntyre, who's also a member of this task force, joined the meeting a few minutes late. And unfortunately, Mr. McIntyre, I apologize. I didn't see you join. I'm going to have to make some modifications to my screen for the next meeting so that I can see everyone. I'm not sure exactly when you joined, but if you also would like to vote on the motion that was offered, were you here for that?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, and I can actually see you now too.
Yeah, thanks. I'm good with the design. I guess my only question would be the location of the memorial. Would there ever be an opportunity to turn it slightly so that it could use a little more real estate, um, the pavers or the walkway pathway facing towards the stairs of the library?
I guess I can respond to that. So when we were going through the relocation, and then once that was decided, and then how we were actually going to design the space around it, we reached out to, I guess it's the Memorial Committee. They gave us numbers of people that they typically anticipate at these events historically. And so we took those, where do chairs get set? Where do people stand? Where do they set tables? And basically took that whole arrangement and positioned it so that it all kind of fit in that area. So if it's a scale issue in terms of fitting amount of people in there that you're typically used to, the new location will accommodate that. If it's a rotation for maybe a relationship with something a little bit different, I think that's up for discussion. But we feel like where we've got it is a really good prominent spot that can handle the way that the ceremonies are usually planned.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, if that was coordinated with some of the veterans, I know at times we've heard, thousands of people gathering for this, and when you look at the rendering, it doesn't look like that would be able to accommodate that from what we're looking at. So that would be my only concern from the memorial perspective. The bathroom, did I hear there's only one stall? It looks like there's two entrances, but can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, so one end of it is the entry into it's a unisex ADA accessible restroom, and then the other side is actually for controls and essentially storage. It's not a large storage; it's really meant to be really for equipment.
Yeah, we felt like having the more family restroom oriented setup was more favorable. It didn't take up a large footprint within the park, but it still provides that convenience. You can imagine that if you've got a couple of kids playing in the fountain, one of them needs to use the restroom or change their clothes, that if you have to run across the street to do that, or I think Emily Dumas was in favor of having a restroom as well, so that she didn't have a lot of people running into the library to use the restroom. So it was a lot of convenience, and it's shy of, if you have ponding water, I think by code you have to have a restroom within a certain distance of that water feature. So we're borderline that. We don't have ponding water, but it's still a interactive water feature.
Okay, so you can access this from either the northern portion or the southern portion. So is there any concern or issue with that then attracting any security concerns late at night? I mean, it is dark, so it's a little ominous, I guess, from my perspective, but that's just...
Yeah, just to comment on that, the darkness of the brick actually is a little bit deceiving, because this brick has a satin finish to it, which is a little bit hard to capture in a rendering. So it actually changes in terms of the depth of the color or the darkness. When the sun's hitting it a certain way, it actually almost looks silvery. If the sun's hitting in a different way, it probably looks more like the rendering. So this specific brick actually has a very sort of chameleon-like character to it. So sometimes it'll look very silvery and bright, and sometimes it'll look like the rendering. It just depends on how the natural light hits it. In the evening, each one of those sort of entry vestibules actually that actually has a glow to it because it's lit within there. So it's not a dark space within those vestibules. And that you can actually see into it. So it's not like you can hide out in these sort of entry vestibules.
Yeah, John, the doors are not hidden behind a wall. They're the way that the walls kind of curve. You always get a view from outside to the door itself. And then there are doors on both sides. One door is to storage, one door is to the restroom, and then there's the plumbing in the middle.
Aaron, did you have a comment?
Yeah, in terms of, so that's seeing the door, but as they mentioned, it would be locked as a matter of just the way we operate it at a certain point in the night, or, or only open for events, however we would do it, but it wouldn't be open 24 hours a day.
So if I'm kind of understanding, you would enter in through, I mean, it looks like as if the door itself, if somebody were to go into it, you don't necessarily, I don't know, I guess from a security aspect, I'm still a little bit leery of the ability for something or someone to go behind a wall and waiting for somebody to exit, and not being able to see that. It's not inherently obvious to me looking at that, that it's kind of just open. It's obvious that somebody has either walked in it and obvious somebody's walked out, or it's obvious that it's available to be used or it's currently being used.
Yeah, the way that those walls, just so you, the way those walls occur in terms of the entry vestibule, they actually are sort of interactive with the path. So depending on where you are along that path, either that door, the actual lockable door into the restroom or storage, is either in full view or it's slightly out of view until you actually walk to a certain point in the park where you actually see directly into that vestibule. So again, it's kind of a catch-22 in terms of what you want to see from the park paths. So sometimes it's actually not a desirable thing to see the front door into a restroom or to a utility building. And so this sort of strikes that balance between the two. So on the one hand, depending on where you are in the park, you might not see that front door, but in reality, if you keep on walking, it's a full frontal view of that door into the restroom or the storage building. You're never really fully hidden within that vestibule area. I'm hoping I'm explaining that clearly enough.
The only thing I'm just throwing out there is just from a security perspective, that's my only concern, that it's obvious that either somebody's occupying it or not, and then if they are, it's not a way that it could be used in a fashion that none of us want to hear about. So those are my only comments. I'm good with the design. Those are just my only my 2 cents. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Any other additional items on the agenda? Any other people like this? I think I've got you all. Mr. Filipski, back again. Are there any other items on the agenda that we haven't taken care of this evening?
Well, it looks like we covered our bases.
Okay. One other comment that I'll make, Mr. Semchina had mentioned that when we have Memorial Day services, there's typically thousands of people on the library plaza. No, there's never thousands. There are hundreds, but never. I don't think the number has ever approached maybe more than, given the counts that we've had every year. I think maybe the maximum that we've had is maybe 450 one year, maybe closer to 500, which is a lot of people given the size of the library plaza right now. But it's never, ever, ever approached even 1,000, let alone thousands of people on Memorial Day. You'll have that many people lining Main Street watching the parade, but they don't all wander over to the Memorial Day service itself. So this design, I think, will fit very well for those kinds of events. Okay, any other business to take care of this evening? Mr. Filipski, do we need to set a date or a tentative date for another meeting, or is that to come? We'll do another doodle poll when something else is ready.
Yeah, we'll do it. It'll be TBD. We'll try to give as much notice on that as possible, but it'll kind of be driven by where we're at with the design and the bid items and everything else. So we will be in contact about our next meeting.
Okay, that's great. All right, at this point, everyone should look for announcements about the police department move, because that will signal that the contractuals will be ready to move in and do the asbestos remediation and lead paint remediation of all the old buildings, and the demolition will be underway this fall. And then we'll move forward. Over the winter, we'll get a good view of what the space is going to look like, and then the construction will start next year. So with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn this meeting. And
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Krieger.
Yep.
Second by Commissioner DeBuck. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, here again, we're going to have to do a roll call. Mr. Sikorsky,
Yes.
Sarah Kinninger,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. McIntyre,
Yes.
Mr. DeBuck,
Yes.
Jennifer Streamer.
Yes.
Who did I miss?
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Jason. I apologize, Jason.
No problem.
You're not pictured on my screen, that's why, it's just your name. All right, the motion is approved. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for all of our design partners. It's wonderful to see. It's wonderful to see you after all this time. We look forward to moving this project right along into the next phase, and we'll see you again hopefully soon. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Right.